Enable share while you're. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. All right, it is now 1:02. I will open this special Grand County Commission workshop, November 19th. Present are Commissioners Evan Clapper, Bill Winfield, Mike McCurdy, Mary McGann, myself, Jacques Hadler, as well as our Grand County Clerk, Gabriel Wojtek, our County Administrator, Quinn Hall, our Budget Director, Steve Vowles, who I will now turn the workshop over to for the duration. Steve. All right, very good. So, share screen. All right, let's start with the overall status. And I did create a little new worksheet to help us set some context for. Gotta reshare. Okay, since yesterday, I'm going to try to just put into context what our objective is for today. We are line number 5 here, or bullet number 5, is we are presently over budget by $468,979. We did approve some additional costs yesterday that were not in the budget. So the COLA, elected official salary at the 3.51%, new positions and job reclass puts us now in a situation where we're 1,015,036, basically 1 million over budget. Now, so what we need to do from that is today we're going to look at 2 different lists. One, what we call the short list of potential budget cuts, and at first blush, using a broad stroke, I believe there's about $1 million worth of potential cuts there, but that's what we're going to look at first. But on top of that, there are some additional requests that are not in the budget. The sheriff URS contribution, the $350,000 ambulance costs that came up yesterday, some others. So we're going to do, this is where we do the horse trading, right? Right. We got $1 million to cut, but there's still some other things that need to be possibly included or possibly cut. So I think our job today is to make the decisions on what cuts are possible, or where we can use capital funds, where some of the, because a lot of these are one time only, and some of them are truly capital, meaning they're greater than 5,000, they have useful life of greater than 1 year and could be depreciated, or are one time. Now, this is not a mature analysis, but I believe a lot of the things that are on the list here, of both of these, about 75% of those are one time.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
So it's possible that we could pay for those out of surplus. So that's our big action today. And then the final action here is we still have a separate capital expenditure list. It's not truly general fund or fund 10 related, but it is the capital projects or capital expenditures that would come from fund 34. So that's not a general fund balancing concern, but it is a list of capital projects that have come up in budget.
A couple of things that I'd like to bring up. I think it's important to note when we discussed going from 800,000 to $1 million over budget, that a big portion of that, nearly $100,000, is a part of our admin staff. We didn't pay the previous admin for half of a year's time, and we increased that pay schedule immensely. So number one, I just want to state I'm uncomfortable going with $1 million over budget. And I could probably look and find some other staffing things that related to that. So I want to bring that out there. And then your lines that show approved, I think those should be tentative, right? Because approved means we're accepting those. And I, for one, am not accepting them until we get our number back to the reality of what we have to have here. And so I'm just I want to be real careful there for both the public and ourselves.
I think as far as the 1 million, wasn't that averaged over 6 years, Steve?
Yes.
So things like that come up. We had no idea that we didn't know that Mallory was going to leave at the beginning of last year. We didn't anticipate that. I'm sure there will be other large positions this year. There's always somebody that leaves. So I don't think we're actually looking at any particular positions, but we're looking at the organization as a whole. And again, we can't anticipate when someone's going to leave. If anyone in any department head or anyone who's making quite a bit of money leaves at any point during the year, there's going to be vacancies for months on end at that. And I think averaging that over 6 years shows that that's a trend that's unlikely to be unrepeated. I mean, I think it's likely to be repeated. I think we're just kind of going with what we've seen for the last 6 years. So,
And I appreciate the light of the 6-year average,
Right.
for sure. I appreciate that. But again, I'm uncomfortable that everything we do keeps adding to this budget. And I've yet to see anything that we're start scratching off, and we've got to start somewhere today.
All right, well, our chore today, I mean, that's just the overarching objective and the position. And actually, I'll contextualize for a minute. Being $1 million over budget with a pretty good list of opportunities to cut costs, considering that a lot of these are one time, a lot of these are capital, I personally feel pretty comfortable that we have a balancing objective inside here. Right. Particularly if we go back around and negotiate with all the department heads and say,
yeah,
help us out.
everyone take a bit of a haircut and we'll.
It's amazing, they will amaze me at times.
Yeah.
Say, oh, I could do this. next
Okay.
year.
Well, let's go ahead and open up the, start with. Start with the list of the short list, I'm calling it.
And I do want to remind everyone today too that we do have a hard cutoff of 3
Yeah.
o'clock. We have another thing that we have to.
What's at 3?
3. We have a closed session at 3.
Okay. There are 83 items on this list. And again, this was
This in our packet.
This was in, yes, this is what we were calling the greater than 1 million, or it's actually the BAB short list tab in the master, the master Crane County tentative budget document. Now I tried to highlight some of these here, but maybe.
Sorry, these are currently in or none of these?
Yeah, all of these, most of these are in. There may be a few, but these are all in. So these are all potential cost cutting.
And it's, the total is 2.5 million or something.
Yeah. 2.5 million. And you might have seen from my introduction over there that, in fact, I'll come to the bottom because I did try to categorize some of these. So 2.5 million in this total list. But you can see I tried to categorize some that are one time, some that are unique. I know that's confusing, and I'm even confused because I'm doing this like so fast, but unique, it kind of means it's a unusual thing or a new thing, not necessarily one time. And I would like to be able to get this even more refined. It says one time only and not perpetual and others, but anyway, we are where we're at. In fact, there's $107,000 of this that is from the sheriff's or search and rescue that says it's going to be grant funded, so it's already included. So I might already be able to take out this 107.
Oh, it's glad I did take it out.
Yeah, I guess there's still some question about how much of that is there. And there's 100,000 that's already, there's almost 90,000 that's already kind of been agreed to, but by department heads that they could put down. And, but I still left it in until it's final. All right, so let's just go over these and, some of them are not even highlighted. Like I know when I put 2 in here that from the commission, I don't want to go over every single line here. I just took a stab at this. Cause I don't know if we wanna say no to 40,000 in water studies, given the water situation right here, right? So,
Well, I think there's value in saying no to it and look into the future if we need to amend to make up and to find, but just to have it there to hold that money, I would say that it's the place to start. Let's start looking negative here. If we really have a water study that I'm unaware of one right now, but if one does come up, then we can amend the budget or we can find that solution later. But I think as we go down this list, we have to start looking where are we cutting? And that's, I mean, you just as well start somewhere.
And is that 65,000, 66,000, with an additional 40K on there? Or is that 40K already added into that?
no, I think it includes 39,000, right?
Okay.
Ken?
So the total is 65.
So the total is 65, not like a add 40K.
I'd have to go back and look at this. I think we had, because we have a separate line for water studies. So I think we might have budgeted in 24 for some water studies out of discretionary and some in the water studies line. That made it, well, it made it confusing.
Would
So I can't, I'm trying to remember right now of why I put that note in there, and that might have been because
I remember we
I
looked towards
think we
water studies
paid-
out in, wasn't it?
we paid for one of the water studies out of discretionary, and it should have come out of.
I think Trish is the one that asked for the water studies in there. I'd be uncomfortable cutting it with her not here to speak to it. I think we could cut it at a later date if she was here. But I would prefer not to cut it right now.
Okay. Discretionary, that's probably something that you just need to use for whatever odds and ends. And if they're not highlighted, they didn't really jump out as, to me, as something that could be cut immediately.
Okay. Do you want to roll through the highlighted ones first?
Let me go
then?
through the highlight.
Okay, that sounds great.
IT, all right, this one's 50,000 to system maintenance and 50,000 towards an ongoing cybersecurity. So off the top of my head, I think if we're
Is
gonna
that-
cut somewhere, maybe we got 50,000 to cybersecurity. I don't know if we can cut out radio.
But yeah, radio system maintenance.
Yeah, radio system maintenance for the sheriff's office.
And is that a one time?
I think that there were some state changes, and so I think they have to stay in line with other changes that are happening, so.
Yeah, I think that the system radio needs to be paid for, but cybersecurity, you hate to cut cybersecurity in today's age, but
So with
you got
I think we have that extra IT position in?
We did.
Would having that extra position help make up for some of the cybersecurity? Does anybody know? Without Matt being here, I'd be hard pressed to.
probably not.
Probably not.
My understanding is that the other stuff is mostly hardware upgrades. I don't know.
I'm really uncomfortable
Were they,
with the taking away cybersecurity. I know we have to start cutting, but I
Yeah.
mean, that just seems to be getting more and more difficult to stop.
was it IT's recommendations that go with hardware and security and cybersecurity issues over facilities?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Because that seems like that was
Down
the
the hall, we need to ask somebody to go get him.
Sure. Let's
Off the trot.
move. Let's
I feel
keep.
pretty good
Yeah,
about IT.
Maybe we can throw actually, let's go through these rather.
Yeah, let's go through them
Yeah.
quickly and then
Yeah.
and then put them in a.
All right, for professional services.
None of these line items are really big in the court and the public defender. And I think those are kind of things that, it's the nature of the beast we have to have around. So,
Yeah.
I don't see the court or public defender ones being easy to chop.
Okay.
There's,
I
there,
will say my comments on the court ones, yes, they are small, but like, I'm seeing a request for an increase when the actuals that you go back to just never. Like they're like, we're gonna be spending more. It's like, well, we never have spent more than that. So why would? And this is like the kind of increase that will get locked in year to year, you know, and so I just.
and there's two line items do add up to 17,250, which isn't entirely insignificant.
That's a good point. I would be willing to look at actuals compared to the budget and bring those closer in line. So not eliminating the line item, but,
Make it more accurate.
Just carrying over or requests or just.
Yes.
Increase.
I mean, if the actuals show that we did we spend more than the 24 request, Gabe, do you know? No, actuals are, we spent 725, the 24 budget, there was 2,000, so I think going to the 24 recommended would be totally reasonable.
And the same for that, the fixed public defender expenses, we have 23 of 0, 24 of 0, and now 48K. What was the explanation of that?
I think there, I made a note on that, fixed public defender expenses. I think we might have missed it prior year because talking to Chris, public defender, she said, this is something we always have, but I didn't see it in last year's budget.
but it looks like the notes have it separated so that it could possibly be grant funded for tracking purposes.
Actually, let me make it just a general observation on schooling expenses. Travel,
Yeah.
training, schooling. Some significant requests there. And I hate to be the one that says you
Yeah.
can't go get
Well,
your
you're not-
certifications and training and travel, but there are some significant expenses there. generally speaking.
And so often anymore, you don't have to travel. Almost every workshop, every program is offered a
Online option.
online option. And with this budget, you know, I prefer to be in person. But, you know, if if it means a difference, you know, for me to travel to Salt Lake, I think you can cut it down.
Okay. Again, let's keep going over these, just to get a snapshot. One time only for some few, so again, the reddish salmon color is like one time. So these could be possibly from fund balance. Copier from the attorney's office. Could be capital expense. 100,000 here. This is, you see the note here. I think it's just a one-time market analysis to establish, I think it's costs. I guess this is, might have to just ask Debbie about what the value is to this, but it's in there.
This would be changing from the, whatever, 4 or 5 year assessment to
From a 5-year rotating
year.
Yeah.
I guess my question is like, this was already like something that was being. How is this different than what was already being assumed to have been in play last year?
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
want to continue on this. This actually are changes happening,
Didn't we put it in last year?
or it wasn't clearly this budget last year was as well.
It was 40,000 last year.
But I don't know, that's changed last year.
But
Yeah.
the 23 budget was
Almost triple.
That was the commercial appraisal. That's always been the standard. It's the appraiser has certified appraisals.
That's a 1 to 5 year thing too. Okay.
It's a round number that gives me pause as well.
Right. Looks like she's in that, to that end, she spent 58,000 this year.
All right, the surveyor has a $5,000 request for restaking. It's in county section corner. All right, facilities requesting a new truck. So it went up from 14 to 25, for sheriff truck.
Later in the facility, well, are we able to, I understand the horse trading, but, looking down the line, Osta, ways down there is going to be looking to get rid of 3 trucks. Are we able to horse trade in between departments there
It's a great idea.
instead of spending 25K?
Right, for sure.
Well, and I just think some of our departments, the weed department and the mosquito abatement program, we don't really need to be putting them in brand new enterprise vehicles. Would they like one? I'm sure they would, but those vehicles are not year-round daily drivers. They don't see the mileage.
They could be some of those hand-me-downs. I mean,
I'm not picking on those two departments in particular, but they have requested new vehicles and there's others as well. I think that we've got to utilize some of this stock that we have sitting.
I wonder if next year we could do something like have Cody do just a survey of all the vehicles in the county fleet and before we get into budgeting and work out a.
I will say that the reason we went with Enterprise 3 years ago was to get the vehicles on a replacement cycle. And so that the deal that Enterprise gives us on those vehicles, once we've used them for a few years, Enterprise buys them back and auctions them and we get money back. We actually increase what we get, we don't get what we spent on it, but we get more than the vehicle is worth. So we're getting to the point now where we are starting to flip some of those vehicles. So that's the whole reason we went with that process.
okay, on the Osta ones, are we flipping those vehicles back to Enterprise or are we?
That's a good question because we still have, there's a very few vehicles left that we do still own as a county that
Okay.
aren't on the lease. And as we start flipping those back into the lease program, we'll start making money on those. But there are still a few vehicles that we own as a county that I don't know which ones are which, but we're getting to the point now where we have started trading some back into Enterprise and it's actually going really well, but we're still in the year
Well-
3 of that, so.
I'm just saying, if we currently own any of those vehicles and we could fill a $25,000 gap
Sure,
in the
sure.
vehicle we already own. Just move it on over.
New vehicles is definitely on my list as a general, cost cutting measure. All right, here's an interesting one. Planning and zoning, we went up quite a bit. This is like a land use consultant to update plans. I think,
Which one was that? 65?
yeah,
85?
yeah, 85,000.
Okay.
Sounds like that might be a hot topic.
And that's for the same consultants that we are working with currently for the project that we had the workshop on yesterday.
No, that's the 24 budget amount. That, the CCB was included in the 24 budget. The 25 budget, just from looking at this would be for a different consultant for land use code updates and state stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay, next up is sheriff. This early intervention, I guess it's a new state mandate. And I'm not sure what all these other things really mean, but it's probably, in a lot of cases here, I think it behooves us to go back to the owner, Jameson, and say, hey, what does this really mean? What is it required?
Yeah.
Nice to have, good to have, that kind of thing. So that's why that one's kind of highlighted as unique.
The 167. Okay.
Yeah, this is one that's that's in the budget. But I still have a question about the comment is these are grant funded, so this potentially come right off this. But I'm trying to get a confirmation of that. 17.7, the sheriff's office, just a lot of equipment, computers, chairs, gloves. That budget doubled from prior year, that's why it's on here. Building inspector has a couple, not large items, but that have increased year over year. The PC is probably, justifiable if it needs to be replaced. But these, some new software, three pieces of new software here for the building inspector. Unique ones, again, schooling. Bill did say that there's just some requirements to make sure that they stay certified. Weed control, this one, I mean, this is a classic example, 2 new vehicles for weed. Subscriptions.
You know, if there's 2 new vehicles or because we approved or we're likely going to approve the 2 grant funded positions, those folks would need a vehicle, maybe. Yeah.
But I like the idea of doing a vehicle we got in the county, rather than just easy to say.
Those positions in weed control are grant funded. The cost, the backload cost in these vehicles and in other things, that $7,000 is really climbing here dramatically. When we start purchasing what's necessary for that position to exist. These 2 departments, in my mind, can be working out of some of the older vehicles for the near term, why I think we should be doing so.
I like the idea of getting a report from Cody on the fleet. I'm sure he's got pretty close tabs on it as it is. Would it be hard to,
See if we could do that, we could.
because rather than us speculating the condition of these vehicles and what's needed,
Here.
he's on it. Let's see his recommendations.
Would y'all say would be, I mean, are we perhaps leaning towards not approving new vehicles? Being further information in time, it's hard to imagine us getting that information.
Right.
In time, aside from with heads.
It'd be interesting to know if if the vehicles are replacing old vehicles or it's just an extra vehicle that's needed might be worthy.
I think it's safe to say it's maybe just replacing vehicles that are. taken
Okay,
back
got it. Yeah, right.
for the most part.
Yeah.
But maybe you're right there.
I do think the lease is a good option. And I know that there were some other, like the film department was looking to purchase one, and I don't
yeah.
know why that would be part of the lease.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess to your question, it seems like the vehicles might be high on the chopping block, and be good to get some input from Cody on his take on it.
And I'm glad Bill mentioned the possibility of amending in the future. That's the budget kind of, you're kind of see where things are starting to shake out at.
Right.
And then folks could come back in for requests.
Yeah, but I like what you just said there. 'Cause I think a lot of people are kind of planning for a new vehicle use next year because it might blow up. But I think the rule should be if it blows up, then it blows up. Come
Yeah.
in front of the commission and ask for a new vehicle, right? Rather than just plan to have one. because-
I would note 2 things. Cody's moved up to where he's the assistant roads department supervisor now, so Jason Beddoes is our fleet manager.
Oh, great.
So,
Okay.
Congratulations, Jason.
Yeah, Jason's doing a
Let's
great
put
job.
him to the test. Get him in.
Cody moved up to what you say?
He took Glenn's place.
Oh, to Glenn's place. Yeah. This associate assistant roads.
But I would say this is the point where I know Gabe and Mallory sat down last year, but this is the point where. Yeah, we make a decision, like,
Right.
we each get 1 vehicle, cut it one.
Yeah.
That's
Makes sense to me.
just, these are the decisions we have to make at this point, so.
I kind of like Gabe's idea, just cut the vehicles at this point. They need them, they come to us, and if we have to amend the budget, we amend the budget at that point.
I like that as well. Because it's just too easy to ask for a vehicle planning for the future. And if it breaks down, come then. Okay. Again, we're not making decisions. We're spitballing right here. One we're
How
on
much
right now.
That take out if we didn't, well, we go through everything, and then I'd like to know how much, if we didn't approve any vehicles at this point, but said, like, how much would that save?
And I can do some of the analysis after here. All right, emergency management, we got a couple here. 8,000, 7,000 greater than last year for campaigns. I think this is just a consequence of the summer storms and maybe just a reaction to that.
I would say the one that for me, like workshop attendance incentives, that just feels like nice, but not necessary. That's it. It seems pretty clear, so I don't know what that value that has in 8,000.
It's like cookies and sodas.
I would be comfortable cutting this down, yeah.
Take it in half.
And the travel here as well. I mean, it's a pretty big list of travel requests. I think that should be
Do we need
challenged.
do we need these for the certification?
Some of them it says required for a position, and I know there are things that we have hoops we have to jump through to maintain our FEMA certification. But so those would stay, but others maybe. on the
Maybe
block.
say, approve the required ones.
Okay, let's keep rolling down here. Interesting one. A trip for seniors to New Mexico.
How much is it?
2,700.
You said,
They used to do bigger trips in the past more often than they have it more recently. Since COVID.
Yeah,
2,700?
I'm fine with that.
$2,000.
okay,
It's nice to see
I'll
those
raise it
folks.
for them if I
Nice
have
to
to.
see those folks get out, but still.
We could raise it.
Then this is this also a new vehicle? The 26 225? Okay. Oh, that's the same as last year. Okay. So that's not a new expense.
Which one are we talking
yeah,
about?
which one are you on?
26 225 at the Grand Center for vehicle lease payment,
Oh,
but it is the same
oh
as
yeah, I
last
didn't
year.
highlight that one. That was, that's the same as last year. I'm sure that's their buses. You know, again, a little travel here. And I think as a general rule, Mary, what you just said, if it's required training, required travel,
Right.
certification or thing,
But if it's not required this year, it's not possible.
mhm. Okay, we're down to OSTA.
It's just got a lot.
There is a lot here, and you see, I didn't highlight a lot of these because they weren't really significant increases year over year. But you can even see here where there were some cuts last year, and maybe push comes to shove, we may have to cut a little bit, you know, of these this year. But I'll just kind of scroll through. I didn't really highlight.
They're just looking at things like the 39,000 for utilities. It says projected growth, but we budgeted 36 last year and the actuals are only at 21.
I think there's big winter bills that come in at the end of the year.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
But. I mean, I don't know, let's see, it's gonna be pretty actual, doesn't necessarily support that theory.
Doesn't support jobs or does it?
31.
They only got up to 29K at the end of 2023.
So cutting that to 31 would be,
Seems like it would be.
seems like it'd be okay.
A lot of these are just a little bit more than previously.
The
So that the numbers aren't as big as it looks like, right? It's just a little bit of a gain over last year.
the items for county owned portable stage managed by OSTA, 23,590.
I think that was for she wanted the wings for it, that I think it made it bigger.
I understand.
that right?
Are any of these like items for county portable stage managed by OSTA waiting on quote to come in, additional staff training. It wasn't that additional staff training shared by the users like the city and
It hasn't been to date. That's part of the problem. I spoke with her about this stage and we constantly use it down here at Swanee Park and the county pays to set it up, pays to take it down. When I realize that we're supplying it to them for free down there, but at some point we've got to start looking at what that costs us. It isn't a county run operation. I believe it's city.
It's city, it's county.
And I
It's
believe
county.
the stage is owned 50-50 by the city and the county. And that there was an agreement that they would set their stage up when they needed it and we would set the stage up when we needed it, but that hasn't happened because they have nobody trained to utilize that.
Greg's the
stage.
only one trained to use it, period,
So-
right?
so
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
the county is subsidizing the city in this instance, in my mind, and it's one more area that we're.
Can negotiate with the city on when.
The free, the free concerts are county concerts. But
Folk Festival, right?
it's, but the county, that folk festival should be paid for that folk festival.
It's a community benefit, pretty much. I mean, it's a free
It's
concert, right?
I know the free concerts at the city park are paid for through TRT.
It's
They are, they are county.
Well, it isn't TRT money that's going to OSTA. That TRT money might be going somewhere, but currently OSTA is funneling and paying to have this stage set up all the time and it's coming out of their budget. It's not supplemented by TRT. So
Maybe
it's just an area, another area that I've discussed with Angie that we need to be looking at and putting some financial numbers to. And I've mentioned before that I think Steve needs to help her put some numbers to what her events are costing us out there, because
Yeah.
if we're only charging an event 3,000 and it costs 6,000. Then the county is subsidizing those events, and maybe there's some of them we want to, but I don't think we want to do every one of them that way.
Yeah. No, I know we get some fees from renting that stage. So this
right.
number may not be us.
Yeah. I'd be willing to look at putting capital towards this. I think the stage is a huge community benefit for everybody. I think it gets used a lot and it's, I think having a second person trained to be able to actually operate it, I think is essential. If Greg's sick or something happens to him, then we don't have anybody who can set it up.
yes, but again, that hard line, if someone's gonna use it, it's not. If it's not, it takes a while to train.
Right.
It costs $7,040 to train.
Yeah.
We wanna get another OSTA person trained,
Right.
but still, there's still use on the outside. We have to get them to commit, or city to commit to get someone trained. When they use it, because not only does it cost the trained person, I know for a fact that overtime is getting delegated out to go set up stage, take down stage, outside of OSTA grounds. Like, they're getting used.
No, I totally understand that, but I still think it would be massively beneficial to have a second person on our end who is trained to set
Yes.
that up. Yeah, just regardless. I mean, it seems crazy not to have any redundancy there. If Greg gets hit by a car and no one can set the stage up, we have to like fly someone in from, I don't know,
Yes.
this is from like Minnesota or something, right?
It all comes down to the stage is not, even if it was set up or anything, or someone could set it up, it's not insured.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
not.
right, of course. So I think we just need to have at least one more person trained to
Yeah.
set that up.
But you're
Period.
talking about funding that from a different fund.
Like rolling the whole stage item into capital, because there are other aspects to the stage, like the sunscreen sidewalls. I've talked to Angie about that too, and I
I
think
know Angie would like to have it.
I think it'd be
close to budget.
I think it'd be quite beneficial also.
Yeah.
She'd like to have it what, Steve?
What's that?
She'd like to have it
Out of the OSTA budget.
out of the OSTA budget,
Yeah,
right?
like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
other.
Because it goes, yeah, it's just basically stored at OSTA and Greg's the one who can set it up, but it's not necessarily an OSTA.
Where would we house it? I mean.
No, I think-
Which budget? I don't mean house it. Which
Oh, yeah.
budget would it be put under, do you think? What, economic opportunity?
Facilities. I don't know.
I don't know, cause we rent that one out too. So
That's right.
it's something we rent the stage out, so we can.
But anyway, I'm fine with putting it under capital myself. I'm just throwing that out there.
Something that could qualify for establishing, tourism facilities.
Yeah, seems like.
Do you think, Gabe, that would? Do you know?
I would want to refer to, you know, the
Yeah.
I remember that
necessary.
discussion when, during the initial purchase, but I don't remember what was finalized on that.
Yeah, we did use it, there was those funds used for it, I do believe, if I can remember correctly. I don't know if I can remember correctly confidently enough to really make that as a statement.
Well, even if it didn't cover the training, if it covered the wings or any additions, that might be nice.
So in regards to the OSTA budget, kind of backing up from that miscellaneous service lines with the stage. What I'm seeing here from travel to work crew supplies, I'm seeing actuals this year that are pretty well in line with this year's budget, and I'm not seeing actuals that necessarily support the proposed increases. So I'm just wondering if we can't just carry over the 24 budget on those lines, and if anyone has any heartburn about that.
I'm okay with carrying that.
I'm okay with that as well. I think that seems reasonable.
Okay.
And in line with what we're doing with everything else too.
Yeah. Well, the next two I have here are pretty big numbers.
Right.
92,391 for two Workman Gator utility vehicles, 31,000 each, and a lawnmower for 15 to 16,000.
I thought the lawnmower was 29,000.
28 to 29,000. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. And Angie already agreed. Oh, yeah, that's right. 20 to 28. Agreed that she could probably do without the lawnmower. But the two vehicles, UT vehicles, she wants to replace some of the old trucks with these vehicles. My mind would be like, the trucks still run.
Yeah.
You get another year out of them.
Or do one even. So it looks like if they could surplus the trucks for 15 to 16, so the additional cost per vehicle would more or less be 16,000, right? If that holds.
No,
Yeah,
they can
So there
service
would be-
4 at 16 per. So
So the two UT vehicles would replace the 4 fleet vehicles.
well, per Cody.
Per
Yeah.
Cody, not per vehicle. I
Right.
think.
Okay, so we can only do
For
4 vehicles for
approximately.
16K.
Probably they're probably
That's
old.
what
I
I'm-
mean,
That's the way I read it.
she has a few old
Start
vehicles
buying
over there,
vehicles
like-
from Buchanan.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think maybe one of those at the most. I mean, if those old vehicles still work, then they still work. They're probably don't need to go any further than to town, right? Or even just stay on the grounds. Do you know?
They
Mike?
just stay on the ground.
They just stay on the grounds,
Expecting,
right.
I know that, the expected workload from the Gators, is purely on grounds.
Okay.
No travel. If there was travel, it would be over to the roads, which is, you know,
I think throwing this in there with the rest of the new vehicles makes sense, and just kind of looking at it as a county as a whole, with all the vehicles that we have. What do you guys think?
I wonder if they couldn't be used by the weed department or somebody that's needing them. I mean,
Well, yeah. These 4 vehicles.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't say that they're unusable, so is there somewhere that we can use them if we're gonna replace them?
Well, who needs a new vehicle more, the weeds department or OSTA? I mean, if those vehicles don't leave the OSTA grounds, the weed vehicles go all over the county, right?
Well, I'd say that there's probably a lot higher maintenance and utility use of those vehicles at OSTA personally, but
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Well, I think we should, all vehicle things, put them and look at them as, you know, do a holistic study, figure out what really is going on with our vehicles. And then for this budget purposes, remove them and have them come to us if they do break down.
Yeah. I'm gonna make just a comment here too, like a lot of these are vehicles or maintenance
Mhm.
or new equipment that may or may not blow up next year. You know, if I were, my kids are asking for a new car, dad would say like, I'm gonna take it to a mechanic and check it out, see if you can get by another year. So what I feel is people are putting in for the budget, thinking this truck may or not last a year, the lawnmower may not last, the tractor may not last. It may be that we just need to take any new vehicles out of our tentative budget and address that when time comes.
Right.
And also, I think also charge the road department, ask them to really look at our inventory, you know, where we're at, so we can have a whole. Right now, we're looking at it one at a time instead of it's a whole county. And I think it would benefit us a lot to see the whole picture, so we could know, well, we can move this to this department and this department, so we do need one more new vehicle, but we can move these around to fulfill these needs, so. I think taking all the new vehicles out for right now is a good way to get our budget closer to.
Yeah, like a
reasonable.
straw poll on that overarching kind of theme.
I like the overarching theme personally. I think looking at all the vehicle situation holistically as a county and then making decisions based on that is reasonable.
I think we need to look at them overall, and I think we need to pick somebody, whether it's Cody or somebody that has the ability to make those decisions for a department. Do we need a new vehicle in this position, or can we get by with something less than a new vehicle? So I think that every department wants a new vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody does, but I think that we've got to rely on an expert somewhere, and can we get by, especially if we're just putting a mosquito sprayer in the back of that vehicle? Does that need to be a new enterprise vehicle, or something that we keep a Band-Aid on and keep it running when we're just not in bad times here?
Right.
Yeah, and I think, Stephen, for your notes moving forward, you know, I'm not gonna get it done this cycle, but for next year, I think, you know, any new vehicle requests should be accompanied by some sort of more formal process and vetting.
I agree. I think
Like
it's
as it
great
gets to
going-
you,
going-
and it goes through these other channels of assessment
Yeah.
by the roads department and kind of checked out before it even gets onto the budget.
Yeah,
Well, and I don't know, I know we've got the deputy chief here, but I believe that the sheriff's department operates their own purchasing of new vehicles, and the road department kind of handles the rest of everything. But I've been to several UAC conventions where those people are there, and is there some value in combining and getting everybody on the same page here so that the entire county receives those discounts or benefits, or is it best to leave it in the two different hands there? I just think a purchasing agent who specifically looks out for the entire county for the best deals for those vehicles, I just see value in it. It works in the art world. I'm not trying to take somebody's position away here, but yeah, there's value with going with one person as long as it's benefiting the bottom line.
all right. Let me kind of repeat what I think we're saying. I'm gonna remove all new vehicles from the tentative budget. Do an overall county review of the vehicle situation and address vehicle needs as needed, but through a county representative that kind of knows about vehicles.
And do you get that? I understand that might take some time. Do you guys want to take the vehicles off the consideration for the budget for this year and consider that as an amendment, like in March or something, if we're.
Yeah, let's,
Or as a budget amendment.
if we even need to, we might not even need to, but I think,
I think we need to have somebody do an assessment. I realize time's of the essence here, so there
Let's
needs to be some kind of assessment done on our vehicles.
Which would mean remove the cost as of right now. Because I mean, this is due in 2 weeks right here. Yeah.
I mean, I know of several we can remove. I don't want to say carte blanche because we
Yeah.
haven't looked at every one of
Yep.
them. I don't
Yep.
know what other departments are here, but I think that an assessment is necessary. And if we want to go through vehicle by vehicle and say, yes, weeds and mosquito, let's let's wait, right? And some of these, and as we get to the others, do the same thing, because I don't know what the sheriff is requesting. We don't know. I think somebody mentioned the film is requesting a new vehicle, and I mean,
I think,
whole fleet of them sitting out right beside the building out there, so I just think that we've all got a wish list, but yeah. It's time to get an assessment done on vehicles.
I'm okay taking them off until that assessment happens.
I'm okay with going over them. Let's finish going over them today.
Let's go
and
over 'em
let's,
today. And
We can carte blanche that whole thing.
and I can take a homework and summarize all the vehicle requests for this thing and then.
Cause I'm even looking farther down in a little bit into Oster right here with the, another vehicle, the Dodge Charger, the Grant County Sheriff's Office, pass vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah,
And-
just in the next line,
yeah,
the golf cart, it's a vehicle.
Mhm.
And actually Angie did say she could do without a couple things here. She could do without the water trough and the 100 chairs. So some of these things are. Can already be
well, see,
taken.
I'm on the other side, other team with that, cause the 100 chairs and the water troughs are pretty easy. I mean, $480 for a water trough. That's a little easier to cover than,
vehicle.
a vehicle.
Yeah,
So it was the golf cart, just she pricing that at 6,000, am I reading that right?
That looks like, yeah.
Okay,
And currently it's a $0 cost charger.
well, whatever the maintenance is, it's pretty old.
Okay.
pressure washer and some other items here on the inventory. Let me see what Abby said. Oh, actually, this whole thing may be able to go away. The last thing, she's gonna try to purchase this under the 24 budget, which was covered, and so that 57, the idea is to remove that completely. Schooling, close to schooling, again, this is, back to our earlier comment, required versus if it's required.
Yeah.
Yes,
I wonder if the footing and academy, that's in the education and here in the schooling line, I wonder if that could be the consideration of one employee, every year for the next 3 years rather than 3 employees at once. It's just a thought.
Agree with that, but like we said with the required, the CPR renewal, that's an everyone thing.
It's required.
Well, we have the footing in two different lines now, right?
Right, which is normal,
Very
but
top, as well as down in this line item. Is there a double?
no, it's usually the registration fee goes into schooling and then the travel associated with that schooling goes into that travel line.
All right, thank you.
all right, and actually, I do have a question here that Gabe, and I know Jacques, your name was put in here, and I didn't,
On the museum contribution,
yeah.
we've done that every year for going way back. I'm entirely supportive of that. I think it's essential for that, for the museum. I think what does that come out of? Isn't that out of, one of the TRC,
Is it our TRCC?
TRCC, right? Yeah, there's a museum.
TRCC.
We have that allocated in the tentative budget,
Okay,
that transfer.
Yeah.
And it is necessary, you say? I mean,
it's absolutely necessary to their budget. Yeah, and I'd also point to the Trail to Tomorrow, said 10% of tourists come to town and do a museum or something to that effect. And it's
Museum.
So it's not coming out of general funds, it comes out.
not coming out of
TRCC.
TRCC, yeah. Yeah. I'm very supportive of that.
And per the letter and the request from Forrest Rogers, in 2024, I guess maybe, this is last year's, sorry. Sketch that, move.
Yep. But we do have a note here that this could be paid from TRT.
Yeah, I
think it's-
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a museum carve out in one of the, I think it's TRCCA.
Yeah.
It's like film, museum. I don't know.
The actuals are at 85,000. The budget for 2024 was 114, and yet we're increasing it even another $10,000 here. So what,
As far as I know from the museum board, that actual is not right, because they're over budget over there. I mean, I'd love to have Forrest come in and speak to that, but
Pay it quarterly.
we pay it quarterly. Okay, so then once we finish our quarterly payment on that, it'll come up to the 2024 budget. Okay. So basically we did spend the whole budget on that.
but yet again, we're increasing it is what I'm saying.
There's
So
10,000.
is there a reason to just leave it at the current budget level? Or is there a reason that we want to increase it by 10,000 here? I mean, we've got other requests for folks that are requesting more money than they did last year. And, I'm not seeing the justification or the support of it unless somebody's here to say otherwise.
I justify it. I think the museum's a unique entity. I think it speaks to the history and the cultural richness of Moab. It's right across the street from here, and it's kind of a one-off. I mean, there's plenty of recreation or other types of valued things that we support. The museum's valuable for tourists and it's valuable for locals, keeping a
I'm not denying any of that.
Sure,
but
sure.
I am saying that we're increasing the budget for on a year when it might not be the best time to do it.
It's becoming a greater
asset.
asset in our community. It's becoming more recognized. People are talking about it's. I think the improvements that we're seeing there justify.
The expand, and frankly, it needs support. I'm a strong supporter of that personally. We can vote on it if you guys want, but that's my position.
I'm not trying to take anything away from it. I'm simply saying that everybody's budget is an increase and we're gonna get to others here as well. And nobody is speaking up and saying that we need to plan for growth in this county. And that's all, I mean, we have got to start having some growth if we wanna make our government bigger. Or if we wanna put more money into the museum, or if we wanna use Sea Haven as an example, everybody's asking for more money, but when are we going to get realistic? That a 0.5% growth does not match a 3% COLA or a 3% raise or on and on and on here. So, I don't know, maybe we've hacked something out of this budget, but I don't see a whole lot so far, and somewhere we've got to start.
Okay, let's go on. So we can do
Yep.
what you want to do.
And I'm gonna come back to that, Bill, once we go through, this. All right, airport, several things here at the airport. Like the 22,500 is to add a recycling program. I don't think that full amount is for just recycling. It's the increase is due to recycling. The feel good item for tourists coming through, looking for the recycling bin.
Don't we have less tourists coming through?
Need smaller recycling bins.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So there's
airport's taking a beating. Why
There's-
are we gonna be doing more?
Yeah.
but there's no current recycling program at the airport.
Next up, a new tractor. Let me see what Ann, she said. She said Tammy could get by without the tractor. So I'm already thinking, well, that's part of our vehicle anyway. We're gonna strip the whole vehicle out until it's proven. This is a big one, actually. So all of these capital projects are on the other capital project list. So this 228,000, if we take capital general fund, kind of just immediately helps our general funds by that much. That give us a new budget officer. I was trying to figure out where things fit. Now that I'm looking at it, that number shouldn't even be here. It should probably go for capital right out. And then that's the second list we're gonna look at here in a minute. This was the forks. There's a front end loader that they need to rent forks or each time they need to pick up something. So we're looking to get forks, I don't know how many times a year. Bill, you were saying something about this one yesterday, but
The old loader fits these forks and the new loader is expected to. Someday.
schooling, pretty big number for schooling. Tammy did say she could already get two of these are not required, so, you know, that,
Take ones that are required.
so I'd imagine that we're gonna cut through those. Okay, we're almost done at the bottom. Grand Center signage outside of the center, some other miscellaneous items, nothing came here. I'm saying a tough budget year, you know, we probably do without signage if we've been doing it all this time. The last two, this is USU, there was a recommendation, I think it came in front of you all for a new staff assistant at 35K for salary, 38 for, or, you know, a total of 38, 350 for a staff assistant. And the benefits 17. Well, this is time for that, but depends on the value added, I guess.
Speaking of USU, Bill, did you see, you saw that email that came through from Christian and Gina about the position? Is that in the budget for that extra funding for the SBDC director?
I don't know where that is. We approved that several meetings back. I'm not sure where that line item is.
Right. Okay.
So I do know they're working on it, but I didn't see the email. I'd have to go back.
Right. It just came in.
Make sure to, you know, to find that and forward it to me, because I don't remember that hitting my inbox.
Yeah, the one from the SBDC. Yeah, that just came in. I think it was just sent to Bill and I. We've been working on that last. I'll forward it right now.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, now I'm gonna make a couple comments here. Just going over this once. We are gonna remove all vehicles, put them on some overarching vehicle policy and replace as needed. Generally, we're gonna try to put some of these increases in 25 over 24, kind of reset them to 24 levels. Because I think a lot of people were just adjusting for inflation, quote unquote. Bring those in line. That will help. But I think now as a general rule, we need to decide how much of these one-time expenses we can cover from fund surplus. We need to get some kind of number or percentage of that, because depending on that tells us how much we're gonna have to just cut. So I guess a big part of today's meeting is how much can we cover from fund surplus? Because if the answer is zero, then I have a lot of hard discussions that need to happen. But if it's let's cover 75% of these with some fund surplus, we don't have to cut as much.
So what would be that number, 75%?
Well, most 75% of these, I haven't got one time on all of these, but I did go through it. 75% of this number is one time. So already going back to, let's go back to our position that I just shared. a
Steve,
second
before
ago.
we go back, what did we decide on the clerk 2 lines there for the 4-H? and
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the new position. And we should
The 2 new
decide whether
positions,
that's-
I mean, is this the time that we want to do that? Are those both something at USU? It says clerk, but
No, I just put, because USU doesn't really have a department, so I put him or Gabe over it, but it is USU extension.
both of those are USU extension
Yes,
positions,
salary
Gabe.
benefits.
Yeah, yep. So that's a new request to increase their staffing, either by part-time to full-time or one position. Not exactly sure how that all shakes out, but
We paid that.
Well, where the extension we didn't pay him. I'm mind not funding it this year.
And to be honest, this is not in the present budget because that was my original thought. anyway, so
I just
Okay,
said,
so it's not a number.
It's
that
not,
you're gonna cut
that's
off
not
the
gonna help.
bottom
This
line.
wasn't big to
yeah,
us.
I don't wanna,
Well, then let's go to the rest of the bottom of this.
Yeah, so
list
what's the
before we
AG&R?
move on.
Yeah.
I mentioned Sea Haven once before, but I think it's a great place to match the budget from last year, to not be looking at increases personally.
Well, so one assignment I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do it this afternoon or tomorrow morning, I'm gonna remove the vehicles, put them in a separate list. I'm going to do a Stephen assessment of taking inflation and moving a lot of these budgets from 24 to be more like 24. Just create another version of this document for our review only, just to see how much that comes. That might get us a lot closer.
Sounds great, Steve.
And-
Thanks.
Okay.
And then your question about spending the
Yeah.
capital. Is that the same pot that we have been building for new facilities?
Well, yes and no. One, we've got 10.6 million in the general fund balance. So if we wanted to do one-time, my suggestion to consider is the one-time expenses, we could potentially use our general fund balance, 10.5 million. Another option is anything that's truly capital, greater than 5,000, useful life, greater than a year, can't be depreciated, could come from the general capital project fund. So either fund could support it. That general fund 34 has 7. So we've got 17 million between the general fund and the capital project fund. So suggestion is if it's one time only, take it from the general fund surplus. If it is truly a capital, take it from the capital fund. We could potentially wipe this whole savings out if we just did that, but there's gotta be some balance.
Of course,
between-
of course. It looks like Attorney Stocks has his hand up online. Stephen, go ahead and unmute and
A question on these additional expenses for Sea Haven and the USU extensions. Did they apply, or what was the process by which they got added to the budget? I know likely if we have other people that are curious about, getting a check from the county, and just want to be transparent on that process. So how did those come to be?
USU extension was brought up in a commission meeting at some point.
Yeah, Mr. Farnsworth brought that up.
And the others, the Sea Haven came from Abigail Taylor.
There's a formal letter request, but no other process.
Okay, I just think it's good to make sure that the public knows that they theoretically could email the commission and ask for funds, and then we consider those requests. Anybody watching might not know that information, so it's good to know when we look at items that are not necessarily within the county's normal umbrella.
So when we've discussed this in the past, I thought the distinction we made is if it's a nonprofit that's working on essential county functions, like, which, Sea Haven does, and maybe some of the animal related things too, but most nonprofits would not. So I mean, just so we don't have to start all over again, I think in the past, we've had this discussion. We funded a pretty small number of nonprofits and they do things that, the county might otherwise be responsible for.
I'm just suggesting that we stick with last year's budget
Yeah.
rather than an increase. I'm not arguing they have a value.
Yeah, no, I was responding to Stephen's point.
Okay.
I would like to maybe increase it something. Statistically, when you go to like the homeless coordinating committee meeting or any of those others, increase statewide, Utah's experienced one of the largest increases for some reason in domestic violence. So what they're facing is greater this year than it was last year. It seems to be coming exponentially. It's not like they're working with the same amount. What they need is greater than what they needed last year. It seems to be. It's partly the way that people have to report. That's hard to distinguish. So I agree with Bill, maybe not increasing it to 15,000, but maybe giving them. What would a 3% be?
Just match last year's budget at this point. We're matching last year's budget. Let's make it easy.
And I like what Bill's saying there because it's a metric that I can use.
Okay.
Because what I'm seeking from you guys right now is a couple, well, one, I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna remove the vehicles in a separate version, a what if scenario budget version, where I'm gonna set things to 25 to the 24 budget levels, just to see what this looks like. I think we're still gonna have a problem. So the question still exists for the balance that's still out of balance after I do this. Do we want to use a rule of thumb that if it's a capital project expense, can we use capital funds, or if it's one time only, can we use general fund surplus? Or do you want to see it again before we decide that?
I'd like to know those figures before I make that decision.
Okay. Well, and you made it make sense as soon as it came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Then we can make the hard decisions. If we don't use that, then we just have to cut. Okay.
I just wanted, you were making a distinction between the general fund balance and the capital fund, you know, within the general fund. Of course, we can transfer money back and forth between those without restriction, and I think the way they've been, you know, shunted off to one or the other in the past has been kind of arbitrary. I'm just thinking back, you know, 4 or 5 years, and we had a lot of federal money, federal government COVID related money. And Chris Baird said, well, let's just all stick it in the capital fund and we'll worry about it later. So we never really had a deliberative process for how much of that should be earmarked for capital projects and how much should not. So you know, maybe, and you know, that cuts both ways. You know, maybe most of that general fund balance should be set aside for capital projects, or maybe, you know, we don't know, but I'm just pointing out that the way that we've put money into one or other in the past has been pretty arbitrary, and there hasn't been a lot of discussion deciding about it. So I think we should just treat them as one big pool of money that's available for both capital projects and also one-time funds.
Well, it makes it easier for me to think through it too. Okay. Then, I like where we're going. I like the next step. So one other short list I want to look at now is just truly the capital projects list. So I suggest we go over that once and see how that might adjust our strategy. And we pull up the capital projects list, and I will say, while I bring it up, that this is not all inclusive. This is what came up through the budgeting cycle, and there may be some other capital project requests that are out there that I just don't know about, but let's just go over this list right now. Like I say, 228,000 of the airport capital project number that is in the other list is also in here, so I can remove it from one and move it over here. All right, we try to raise this.
Also, it'd be interesting to know how much of the capital fund did we spend last year?
I don't have that number, but
That was mostly range of 2 to 3 million for the new plan.
Oh, yeah, right. That was it. So it was 2 to 3. 2 to 300,000.
Where is the airport one that you mentioned, Steve?
it's gonna be right down at the bottom of this, somewhere in this list. Yeah, right there, in the middle here. So we're gonna go over that number that was over here is gonna be right here. So what's in this list? So in this list actually is facilities and maintenance, airport, OSTA, and I think that's it. Oh, one reporter, that document digitization project. About 2 million in capital projects. And as a general rule here, this is, well, and I haven't lived through this exercise before. I know years past we had some like pre-authorized list or something like that, so we didn't have to do one-offs and all of this, but
The pre-authorized list is more a mechanism that comes post-budget, so that things that have been approved in the budget that can then be submitted and voted on by the commissioners at one of the early meetings in January, so they don't have to come back to the commission. If you remember, the commissioners that have been here a few years, like every truck that got purchased had to come to the commission. Every new lawnmower was a pain. So the pre-authorized list is simply a mechanism by which to make purchases throughout the year easier and more straightforward. It's most definitely a post-budget
Okay,
process.
okay. All right, well, let's just go through this list so we have a picture of the full situation. Again, I didn't consider this to be part of the general fund, i.e. Fund 10 balancing problem. But to your point, Kevin, general fund 10 or capital projects fund 34. That's why we're kind of having this conversation. All right, so a lot of the HVAC stuff. The highlighted things from Sean are things that he believes need to happen next year. The roof replacement, 70,000, insurance is gonna pay 25. Courthouse HVAC, 61,000, 21 is covered by
Steve,
insurance.
is that 25,000 deducted, or is that roof costing us 100?
No, the 25 will be of the 70 will be covered, so we'll still.
45,000.
Okay, question with that, are we not insuring these for their value? Or is it just depreciation on that?
It's depreciation.
Okay,
So the insurance is willing to replace what they see the kind of the current value of the AC unit.
And we can't insure them more than the value that they're worth. That's not possible. You get to replace what it is, not what it could be.
Library HVAC, we've heard about that quite a bit. Yeah, there's no insurance there. Costa HVAC. Insurance pays half. And the yellow were Sean's immediate needs, thinking like immediate 2025. The others could be, let's address it when it breaks type of a scenario, but it is on the list.
Sean's pretty accurate in his assessments in
Yeah.
general.
And you guys can read this. I think we've
Yeah.
heard most of these at some point. Okay, we just scroll down. Now we're down to.
Is that auto transfer switch for the, didn't we replace that last year for the generator, or is that?
So we budgeted for it, but we haven't actually, it was budgeted for 24, but it hasn't come yet.
So that's 20, so we don't need to worry about that, because it's 24 budget, or?
We still need to worry about it because we had the budget for it in 25, even though we did get it. in 25.
Okay.
We didn't spend the money in 24, but we gotta spend it in 25.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're at the top of the airport.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
all of these are currently in the budget or these might be added in?
No, none of these are in the budget. These are all list of capital projects.
So this is back to the wrong direction.
No, we could take.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I said,
this would come out of
general
capital projects,
fund.
not general fund.
Not a general fund balance.
Thanks.
Had me worried.
Yeah. Airport. Advertising.
Line are you on?
Line 50.
I'm on line 50. And you know, and it's hard for me, since these are capital project requests, you know, like security cameras, intercom access, control recommendations from the DHS.
recommended or requirements?
Recommended, it
It
says.
says recommended. All right, now we're down to, and I'm going through these quickly,
Right.
OSTA. And these are things that are not in the budget, you know. Panel, outdoor arena, I mean, you guys can. Or, I think that's might be.
And then the big one there's the fire suppression system.
Yeah.
They've been talking about that since I was on the OSTA board 4 years ago. It's something that's needed. And I don't think those systems are getting any cheaper. It does say it's the estimate's between 150 to 375K. It's a wide range. But I think, I think that system's like 40 years old, right? Like,
That system was.
I think it was
it was called upon by our fire chief that
From
it
the
was,
80s.
it was not up to,
And that's on our budget every year. That's something I think that I would be comfortable with funding from capital.
Which one?
The fire suppression system.
Yeah,
It's come up every year and it's, I know it's been a problem for a long time.
Yeah, and that seems like a worst case scenario thing.
Yeah,
It says 150 to,
right, 150 to
and
375.
I remember when she brought it up in the past, she was kind of, it's like the grade A sort of thing. And there
Yep.
might be. So I'm okay with fire suppression. I kind of had a question about some of the bullpen sort of things and, you know, how much,
I know a little bit, what you got?
just if we're in the market of housing bulls, like if that's where we want.
We,
to spend it, or-
we do house bulls out there quite often,
Okay,
and
well, if we want to continue to, is my.
Oh.
I mean, cause I was in here begging for an ambulance yesterday, so then it's hard to say, oh, we need to update the,
$145,000 for bowls.
yeah.
Sheriff? On this one,
Yeah, go
there was an incident when bulls
Yeah.
escaped.
And there is there's a note about that. I remember that incident as well. Yeah.
walked up on the freeway or something like that.
Yeah, they escaped and walked up on the freeway. They broke through a welded section.
I think it got several miles down the highway.
A UHP officer
Once it clear down to the transfer.
hit both
station.
bulls, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you all a question on this capital project list. Is this, and excuse my ignorance here, but is this something that we need to approve for the 2025 budget, or can it be as needed?
Some of it's a wish list, some of it's an as needed. I mean, from what I can tell, we already need to refine down quite a bit, because I'll go with Evan on this. Even at OSTA, we could hold back on the bull fencing. The fire suppression system is not a wish list item. It is, we're at the point of,
I agree.
it's a need item.
What's the necessity here, Gabe? Is this, or is this something that we can work on, as they're saying, as we need?
Ideally identifying the baseline ones that we know are kind of like not really optional. I think that's.
Can we do put this in a chart where we can rank them as we did on previous things and just put or does this have to be done for the budget for this year? I mean, is there a way to just come through and rank each one of these individually for the 7 commissioners?
I guess since it is in the Fund 34 and not Fund 10, I mean, we could leave Fund 34 budget at 0 and just plan to amend it based on further discussion. I mean, I don't necessarily see problem with that given the fund balance situation that's strong.
Are there some things we want to approve right now? Like I'd be willing to approve the 4 things that Sean highlighted,
Yes.
and I'd be willing
So
to.
I was gonna mention that if the commission can offer some direction to staff on things that we could move forward with, and that's helpful because
Yeah.
as you can see by the list, we've got a lot of kind of deferred maintenance things, and we haven't
Right.
really been specific with our capital projects fund over the last few years. And so if we could get some direction from the commission, like, yes, go ahead and fix this, A, B, and C, and that helps us move forward on some of that stuff. And it also takes it off the plate for the next year. Like
Absolutely.
the fire
I-
suppression, probably should have dealt with that 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
the
Let's just highlight the ones, the 4 on top are already the.
4 on top, I would totally defer to Sean on that. I think
Okay.
those are,
Oh, I'm even gonna go with the 5th because the Grand Center HVAC replacement. I mean,
if
are
insurance
we,
pays.
if we're gonna if
Insurance pays
insurance is
for
gonna pay
half
half
of
of
that,
it, why are we not accepting that?
And I want to make a comment too on some of the airport ones here. Tammy does have some, I don't remember what the full amount is, but Tammy does, the airport does have some restricted funds available to cover some of this airport stuff. But I don't think that distracts from our strategy of
Right.
No, but it would be
approving it now or
helpful,
approving it as needed.
just like the insurance ones, when we're getting 50 cents on the dollar, why it would help us to know, if there's some funds available to help pay for that.
So I think putting
so-
the Grand Center HVAC on, highlight it.
Okay, let me go. So we have the 4 at the top. Now
So
tell me which one.
It's the 5 at the top. So include the next one down.
That one right here.
You got it.
Insurance payments, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I guess I want to go down the line 55 to excuse me, the security cameras. If I'm remembering correctly from Matt's presentation a few months ago, some of that was for evidence lockers,
Yeah.
directly law enforcement related. I think those are pretty urgent and I wouldn't want to delay at all getting those in. But I don't know if that $200,000 figure is just for those, but then Matt also wanted to eventually do that for all county buildings. To me, that feels like a very low priority. I think my personal opinion is kind of overkill. We don't need like a card system to get to the courthouse or this county building. So I guess I would want to prioritize part that's related to law enforcement facilities and prioritize everything else.
That sounds fair to me.
And again, I don't know whether that $200,000 figure that's in your chart, that might already be just law enforcement, but Matt.
Is that the courthouse elevator replacement you're looking?
No,
at?
no,
that's
Oh,
55.
It's charge of security cameras, intercom access control. Line
oh,
55.
yeah.
I do think that's just for the sheriff's office. I don't think that includes all of the county.
Okay, great. Well, in that case, I don't think we should lay on that.
You wanna add that one in?
I'm looking for highlighted, the ones we want to approve
Yep.
for today. We got the top 5,
Top 5, and then go to line 55.
and then 55. Is that this one right here?
Security camera.
Yep, that's
That's
it.
That's it. That is
Yeah.
highlight.
You got it. And then
Okay.
line 59.
And what's that? That line
Yeah,
55
fire
is
suppression.
listed under
Fire
airport,
suppression.
No, that's sheriff's.
but it's sheriff's.
Yeah, it's not listed under airport, it's just sheriff.
But in column K, it shows it as airport.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
55, security cameras,
This is
intercoms,
airport thing specific.
Oh, so that's
control recommendations, airport.
The one you were just talking about.
Yeah, I was talking about the sheriff, yeah, so I don't.
Okay, so maybe,
So I'm gonna highlight this one for the moment.
yes.
That's something that's
All right.
airport, if you
Yeah.
just scroll on over to the plane.
I see,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see what you guys.
And if she has
That
some
is-
restricted funds, that'll pick that up.
I didn't. see
Yes.
Yeah, me either. Mike brought it up.
Okay. Well, again, we're not saying no, we're just not gonna include.
That's
it
right.
in the baseline.
The highlighted ones, we can, I think we're all on board with those, general
Okay.
agreement. And then, yeah, and you got 59, right? The fire
Yep,
suppression.
59, fire suppression, and then, the rest of this stuff.
But going back to the security cameras, it'd be great if someone could just track, is that something we've already approved and I forgot about it, or is it?
We're getting
in
the
the budget
nod
cycle?
from the back.
Did we approve that, Mike? It's already done. All right, there you go. All right.
Approved and done, sweet,
So-
success. Thanks, Mike.
Fantastic. Oh, okay. Got it.
The last line here, there's the digital imaging.
Oh, yeah.
Moving to the cloud, is that considered capital or is that?
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. There's probably some part of it that could be capitalized, but since it's.
Gina's here if you want to
Gina?
speak to that. Gina, you can come forward if you would.
You know how much is capitalizable or expensible?
Well, once it's done, it's.
Yeah, if you could, do you mind coming forward, Gina? Yeah, just so the folks online can hear you. Thank you.
Once it gets digitized, it's all done. There's nothing else to maintain.
But in a true accounting rules, I'm not sure how much is depreciable.
Yes, if you can,
Expensible
Right.
items.
but
Some
like,
of it probably is depreciable, but,
but like Kevin said, we could pull that out of the general fund and it's essentially the same
sure.
thing, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
But I guess the question was, should we label this as a one-time expense? We've got that category versus capital.
It would
feels
be a
more like-
one-time expense.
And this is something that's been a long time coming,
The
right?
one that wouldn't be a one-time expense is to get the online document management to be available.
So,
That's the, not a one-time.
Continuing
But this one
expense.
is the digitizing.
Well, and I've mentioned before, this is something I support. The assessor's office, the recorder's office needs some things. This is some essential stuff that we've got to do for this
Yeah,
county, so.
I'd agree with that. I've heard from a lot of people that this would make things a hell of a lot easier for, for them.
highlight it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gina.
Okay.
Evan, did you have a?
I agree, highlight it, but I just don't know if it belongs on this list.
And then I agree.
Yeah,
This-
yeah.
I was like, find out that answer, yeah.
Well, there's some mixed direction here on what's capitalized or one time only, but
Yeah,
to Kevin's point, it comes from the general fund or the capital project general fund. They're all kind of one and the same. We'll figure out which fund it comes from, but to include it in the baseline budget, that's the key.
Yes.
Right. Or key answer. Yeah. All right. This has been very productive.
Yeah.
We're gonna shorten up the capital projects list for 25 and then just have a general rule, but if something breaks, you need something in the future, just come forward, we'll amend the budget. I'm going to do the two things for the general fund, remove vehicles, put them in a separate list. Kind of do a Stephen spread over a lot of the projects in a what if budget scenario, setting things to a little more 24 like. And then represent that again. So we probably want to be.
Do we want to schedule another workshop? Actually, Mike has his hand up. Come forward, Mike, if you want to speak.
Things about or picking up tier two retirement. Yeah. Okay. You guys have any questions first? We went in, we kind of trimmed, lack of better term, trims that we cut 180,000 out and asked for 88 to pick up the 25-year guys. That does include corrections, it does include dispatch.
it's, I guess my question was, all your other benefits are presented in line with salaries and benefits and that, and I could see this being in that benefits line, and it was odd to me to see it outside of the sheriff's budget. And so I was curious more if there was places around, I mean, you know how complex that budget is, if, you know, we could trim some ammunition or some new shotguns or something like that to make up the difference.
Because right now we've got. I know. We're kind of beat up extra in this case. Things like that we bought, went through. I mean, obviously, 5 years from now, need a few more items. Yeah. Instead of buying them in bulk, I would like to do 5 at a time. Just that, I think. They'll maintain 10 years of these rifles.
So do you think that within the department, there's room to trim to meet this, so we can make the transition for everyone to be on this retirement plan?
Well, that was the way we did. We went in and we cut 800. I can't remember exactly how much we cut it. It seems like cut most of it out of the least.
No, that's it. It was just because we often look at the benefits organization wide, it was just kind of odd to look at a list of individual employees and benefit changes to them. So
Not the tier 2 guy out of tier 1, but it since Allen County they pick it up, Web City picks it up. Just makes sense. Technically did go up because
Okay, so to summarize, you think you're picking up the retirement thing, that's a priority for you guys for the reasons you just gave, and you have tried to tighten the belt on other parts of your budget. Yeah.
and I mean we could still probably cut a little bit here and there, but I don't know if it's gonna be.
Online is not picking up what Chief Deputy Palmer is saying.
It would be point of 2,000 bucks.
Point the mic.
8,000 bucks there. Cutting the trimming a little more off, but okay. Anything substantial other than 180,000 we got. Okay. Any other questions?
Not a question with this, but again, my wife works for the sheriff's office, is not part of this, this talk, but I 100% support, this one. This directly affects, the movement of, staff retention, sheriff retention. I mean, our sheriffs go to the Moab City Police. if they get a better offer, they go to San Juan County if they get a better offer. So this retaining employees, yeah, staff back and forth. If we can retain, it's so much cheaper instead of replace.
Training new guys.
Yeah, instead of training a new guy.
And what we've recently had to do too is we've had to kind of spread out the boundaries, which has brought the fuel up, tires up, oil changes up, you know, just because of the cost of living here, things like that. But
The same thing, not to get in the weeds too much, I know we're on the time thing, but I think we're actually a little ahead, but EMS just qualified as public safety, and so they were eligible for this, and it looks like they're making plans to transition to the tier 2, and as a way to pay for that, they're lessening the HSA contributions. And so that was just kind of some of the creative funding that kind of went into it. And that was more my question. And yesterday's workshop is, you know, rather than us kind of figuring out how to make it happen, you know, kind of putting the ball back in your guys' court where it's like, yes, this is valuable. Yes, we want to have it. Maybe we decrease the HSA match because that's an optional thing, whereas this they'd be required to pay it the monthly thing. So
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
yeah. That's I'm glad to circle back on it. So,
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to iron it out if we needed to.
great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Well, when should we meet next? I think.
I have a question.
Mary has a question.
Yeah, 'cause I've mentioned it a few times in emails and such, is, I think it's really important to put some money in our discretionary fund for housing. I know that they will be coming to us at some point this year. Because there's also both, Hasu and Arroyo Crossing are looking at ways of moving forward and increasing housing outside of just Arroyo Crossing. And the people, anyway, they're gonna be coming to us for money. Asking for money, and they're gonna go to the city as well. It's not like they're just coming to the county, they're gonna go to the city, probably other agencies. And I just think it would be wise of us to put in the county's discretionary fund $100,000 from our surplus to be able, when we have an opportunity to increase our assured housing or affordable housing, to have the money there to do so. Cause it's going to come up this year. And it's a big deal. It's in the Trail to Tomorrow. That housing is a big deal. Everybody runs on housing. It's the big word. And yet we need to put our money where our mouth is and say, okay, housing is important and we're gonna put this money away to spend on housing. So I really want to see $100,000 in our discretionary fund for housing, taken out of our surplus.
Yeah, Bill.
I'm supportive of putting money towards housing. What I'm not supportive of is putting it towards somebody's salary on a task force or somewhere else. I wanna make sure that goes into infrastructure or lumber or whatever, but I'm not big on anybody getting money just for salaries. So we've gotta be real careful putting that money in there as to how it gets spent.
But we
Yeah,
will
so
have a lot of choice on that.
I think with Mary's proposal, it would require a second vote of the future commission to
Agreed.
actually spend that money. So
It's just to, however it comes up. The reason Arroyo Crossing happened was because the county stepped up and helped. Otherwise, it would have probably never come to fruition.
And in that case, it actually was salary paid, Caitlin's
Yeah, it
salary.
was salary that got Arroyo Crossing going because a voluntary board cannot handle a multi-million-dollar project. So I don't know what it will be asked for. It's being hashed out now. They're working really hard on it. They really want to improve housing in this community, both those organizations. And I think it would be wise of us to put money aside for it. And then later on, we would decide if we agree with what they come and request.
Dave, question, if a liked and they voted on, something came up, say March. We liked it, we voted on it, could a budget amendment be made to fund said, said liked topic at that time?
Yeah, and it's hard. Yeah, I think that without a more specific figure and a more specific picture of what would be funded, I don't know. I don't know if I would recommend, but like just, budgeting a blanket amount in that way. But there's nothing that would stop this commission from considering, a more specific request in the coming year when it was prepared. That's my 2 cents.
But I too like the 100,000. I mean, I want it to be our entirety, our millions. But I would like a defined request, and we can make an amendment at that. If there's something we all like at that time, we can pay for it.
Stephen online.
I think it would be good for the commission to consider what and how much they want to put into lobbying efforts. I think that's a topic that's an important consideration to make, and especially it's going to be coming upon us, the legislative session in the year. I don't know if commissioners have really gone through and talked about that. I know that it's a lean year, but I think that's something to consider, and then consider funds for commissioners if they want to travel or not. I think those are items that I think it would be good for the commission to discuss that at a future point or sometime.
Yeah, and I think we did just briefly touch on the amount that the legislative counseling we had budgeted for this year anyway. We budgeted 50,000, and I think we have that in the budget for next year. The actuals on that are only
Half as much.
yeah, half as much. So it's kind of I think Cody works really well with us in that he only bills us for what he actually does, which is great. And I think that's a pretty low number for lobbying. So I'd be supportive of keeping that line item at the same as last year, and probably with the expectation, unless we really put Cody to hard work, which I'm not opposed to, it would probably come in at less. But you're suggesting we also look at commissioner discretion, Stephen? Is that right?
I'm just noting it. I was there when it has been something in the past that the commission previously has talked about, and I'm just raising issues that if we're talking about budgeting items, I think it's wise to just raise all issues. So
I do think I reached out, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and everybody got back to me with their commission budget requests. Right. I do think they're captured in the current budget.
They are.
So I want to go back to Mary's point and maybe push back a little bit against what Gabe said. Often when these, we get a request to spend some money and it's the middle of the year, it's not in the budget. And yes, it's true, we can amend the budget at any time of the year, but the reality is, staff tends to want to, do it infrequently or wait, so it kind of typically it tends to slow things down and make it more difficult. And so I think Mary's point was, we all agree housing is a top priority. There's, I think if we improve housing, we have to try a lot of different things. What we mostly do is, do things like HDHO and higher density, use zoning to try to encourage housing, but we could also put some money towards some projects. And I think, in this budget, we're doing what we're doing now is trade-offs, like, okay, we're going to defer buying new vehicles because we think it's more important to do the sprinkler system and things like that. So to me, it makes sense to, in this conversation of deciding which priorities make the cut, which don't, to say that, yes, even though we don't know the exact form it's going to take, we do want to spend some money on housing, and we don't want to end up with a budget where we feel like we don't have the money to do that because we spent it on sprinkler systems and stuff like that. So to me, I think it makes sense to have some money that's earmarked for housing. I mean, I think Gabe's point makes sense too. I mean, I can see the other side of this, but I think it would make sense to do that. And to Bill's concern about, well, how exactly this is going to be spent, someone will have to come to the commission with a very specific proposal. And I think the commission can say, like, no, we don't want to fund salaries, for example. That would be very easy to do. They'd have to modify the request for it to be something the commission wanted to fund, or just money would even though it's allocated, it doesn't get spent. So,
What, just to, I remember my first or second year when I was on the commission. And for years and years, especially people who have lived here for a long time, know we talked about wanting a campus. USU is a big deal. Never, it just was talked about. I feel somewhat, we've made some real progress with housing. I think we can make more. And one year we just said, we're going to budget to get USU. We're gonna have a line over here that we're gonna budget. We ended up working with the city, going to a CIB. We knew when we budgeted, we really didn't know what we were gonna do with it. We just knew we wanted to intentionally say, this is so important to us, we're setting money aside. And it's that intention, saying, this is important to us, we're setting this money aside, and because we want it to happen. And within a year, we got the CIB loan, we were building the infrastructure, and what is it? Less than 10 years later, we have campus. But for years and years and years, it was just talked about. I really believe that psychologically, energetically, and everything, that if you really want something to happen, put your, you put your energy there, you put your money there. So that's why I wanted to.
Yeah, I think to Kevin and Mary's point, both, I think that we can put it in there, Steve, so that we can move on. I do think it's extremely important to note that next year's commission is probably going to look at housing in a different light than what's happened in the past. And I think putting it in there in a line item, we might have to chop it later if we don't get to our bottom line here, but put it in and let's move on and let the commission vote on that in a future meeting of how that will be spent.
I'd like it out of.
Well, let's go, I'll put it in. So we're gonna do, the next meeting is a view.
And Mary requested that it come out of surplus, so it wouldn't actually affect.
Right. So
Okay.
as soon as you said that, it went right over my head.
Yeah,
It's easy. But I actually, one other question, the ambulance. I don't know if I brought this up yet. Is that something that goes in our what if analysis, the 350 for an ambulance? Should that be in or out for further discussion? What's your view on
For
it?
surplus.
I thought we were talking about picking up the payments, because the ambulances are already on site ordered.
I forget what our outcome was yesterday. That's good.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I think we, just ran out of time talking about it.
But there was some discussion, I think, around what Mike was mentioning. We were going to try and pick up payments or something.
I guess my version of it, we would, support them in raising their sales tax so that they have the money in the future. So
As far as picking up the payments go, do we know what the payments would be for
Not
for the year?
It's my understanding that tax, if they are the ones that, if we decide we want to implement that, it has to go before the voters, and it's up to us to do that. And I would be one of the first ones to say that I'm not going to sign my name unless we put another tax in place right now, based off of going to the voters. I mean, it's pretty clear that there was a huge kickback over at the city, and we've got to be real careful. So yes, CMS could put in a tax, but really it would have our signature. So,
With that in mind, also the other, public safety tax that could be passed by resolution. They could be eligible for something out of that as well. I know the sheriff brought that up, and I would say if we're putting our names on that I would want a portion of that to go to EMS, but regardless, I think that we do have this TRT in place, and that the spirit of that law is that it gets split between different entities. And so whether we budget a one-time thing, or whether we have this shift of, bidding a percentage annually of the TRT to go to EMS, I think that when they were no longer a county department and we approved that plan and the separation, that at that time it was expected that we were going to contribute funds to the district, which we haven't been, so. I, to your original question of where do we put the ambulance or what comes in? I would like to see a contribution made to the EMS district and whether that, you know, which pot that comes from and what the total amount is. I mean, we can wrestle over that more, but
Maybe we could find out what the yearly payments are.
Okay. Well, what I'm hearing, since we're just doing what if analysis right now for the next meeting, is put it in. I'm gonna put it 350 if we can determine if it's a payment less than that. But to get our next look at the tentative budget.
But I thought we discussed this yesterday and the conclusion was don't put it in.
I guess I'm mad. You guys are the bosses. I guess I'm still confused what I should do with this on the next version of our.
I think yesterday the conclusion was not to put it in.
Okay.
That's what we came to yesterday.
Okay, I was confused. I didn't know if we were putting it in or not. So let's leave it out.
I mean, I think it was my understanding until we got this other part in balance. And so if we are closer to the mark, I would like to see.
Okay. Well, I heard it. I'm gonna leave it out. It's still on the list. Now I remember it came back.
Yeah.
We're not gonna put it into our baseline for review, but it's still on the list for
That's right.
conversation. Okay.
And so the
just-
last, yeah, go ahead.
While we're on the topic, I did meet with this board earlier today and, you know, I relayed to them that there wasn't a lot of interest in funding this. And so their plan is to, no longer have a backcountry ambulance. And so that means responding to places like behind the rocks and the White Rim and stuff that backcountry ambulance will basically be taken out of commission and not replaced, and that typically during peak season, March through December, there's 3 ambulances on call because it's often that they do a lot of facility transport, so they're driving to somebody's Salt Lake, they might respond up to I-70, and then the third ambulance kind of stays local. And so that peak season from March through December, that third ambulance won't be they're gonna cut 45 days of staffing out of that. So I mean, it's basically coming to the point where if you call for an ambulance, one might not show up. So that's just a little behind the scenes for where that's at.
I spoke with Andy today too. He called me regarding this issue, and I really feel like there needs to be some sort of meeting. And I think that we need to bring the sheriff and EMS and fire and maybe a subcommittee of commissioners in the future together to kind of work this out rather than during budget season. Yes, you get TRT money. No, you don't. We've got to, they should be working together, or maybe we all should be working together rather than kind of being put in this position right here. And I've recommended that to Andy, and he was favorable to future discussions around it.
Fire doesn't get to you.
Okay, we do have 5 minutes left to determine the next meeting date. You want a meeting early next week to this end?
Yeah, as early as possible next week. I can be ready for that.
Everyone available Monday? Monday.
Planning commission's at 4:30 on Monday, so.
I'm available Monday.
Can we do it? So if they're available, if they need it 4:30, we could do, you're available Monday morning?
Monday afternoon,
Yeah.
Available.
Monday at 10, is that 2 hours?
Thank you. Thank you. Throw down Monday.
Okay, let's do it Monday at 10 o'clock. The 25th. All right, anything else before I close the meeting? All right, it is 2:55. I will close the special budget workshop at the Grant County Commission, and we will reconvene at 3 o'clock. Thanks.
Can't be easy, Steve. Good luck.